And without some kind of town subsidy for the transfer station people, they're gonna be paying more. I mean, it wouldn't be right to charge the transfer station people less for each bag than the people who use island rubbish. That's the other way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you ever keep that straight?
Right.
It would be impossible.
Impossible. If the town subsidized the whole program and equalized it out,
You'd have to subsidize the transfer station people.
that's what I mean.
Yeah, somehow. How do you do that, though? You do it by charging less for each bag, or make a no transfer station fee, and that means anybody could go up there and dump anything.
Well,
No, the whole point of the bags is to, if you throw a bag away, you have to pay for the bag. The whole point
Right.
is source reduction, so reducing the price of the bags for one segment and not the other is not, you know,
accomplishing the,
what we're
Right.
trying to do.
I was thinking that if everyone had the same cost for bags, I don't think you would have to subsidize them individually. If they're going to pay the same amount for the bags that everybody else is, then, and the town subsidizes the whole program, would that work?
I don't understand, but
Well-
how would the town subsidize it? Give away the bags free? That would defeat the purpose.
Yeah, that would defeat the purpose.
I'm still not following this with island rubbish. Maybe I'm just being a little...
Okay,
They're now paying about $288 a year, the average user.
correct.
And when they purchase bags, it's gonna cost them $144 for
Right.
bags, just the bags.
Right.
What's happening to the fee that they are paying to island rubbish?
The town would have to,
So the town is gonna pay for island...
from the revenue they get from the bags, they're gonna have to pay island rubbish something.
Then who
I
in
would
their right
think.
mind is gonna wanna pay for the transfer station when the town's picking up the tab for everyone having private hauler? Basically, we're talking about having a private hauler for the town.
And that starts another whole issue about putting it out for bids and
Right.
all sorts of other things.
Before we get into that, there was a situation in which the state recently, let me get this straight, they passed a law that, but it was for state bidding, that I think if it's equal or something, they can choose the one they want, or they made it so that we're always taking the lower bid. I forgot.
There was something, someone discussed something about that, I didn't understand it at the time, maybe Bruce could help us out.
Yeah,
with that.
Bruce, I read in the paper, but the details of it went by, but I thought about that, I thought, oh, that's interesting.
That is the other option that I guess we could consider, is that have island rubbish pick up everybody. And the transfer station would be just for television sets and scrap metal and oil and...
I have a question about the transfer station. It's a little off this recycling. What do you do with things up there that are non-garbage?
They
Like
put it in
that?
the garbage. Well, the scrap metal they sell.
Right,
The
but what I'm
oil-
talking about is, when you go to use the transfer station, that big container is supposed to be for household garbage, not for, supposedly not for, like big pieces of plastic or...
Furniture.
Yes, so what does the transfer station doesn't allow for anything like that up there?
Here's my guess, is people put pieces of furniture and beach umbrellas and all sorts of things on benches on the side where they dump it into the truck. And at the end of the day, I think if no one picks that stuff up, they just throw it in the...
But there's some things you might want to get rid of that, who's going to want them? And you're not going to just leave them littered up there along the bench.
I think he throws them in the hopper.
Ultimately.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
Because I've gone there 2 days in a row, and one day there's all sorts of stuff on the side, the next day there's nothing. So I suspect he just dumps it.
He does, because that was one of the points he made, was you don't charge, if you're gonna do the bag, you don't charge somebody for leaving lamps or whatever. But then what do you do if it, 2 days later and it gets rained on?
But I'm talking about trash. I mean, I wouldn't leave something, I'm talking about big pieces of plastic, for uprights from a pool. This is my dilemma when I went up there. And I honestly went up there and didn't want to throw it in that thing, in the container, to figure out where it goes. There's no facility up there to get rid of anything like that, right?
Right.
There's no facility up there to get rid of an old busted up chair that, might not be any use to anyone.
It's trash.
But you're not supposed to put it in that.
Yeah, if we go to bags, what do you do with this stuff?
Howie, didn't you say that other rubbish would pick up your old chair to set it out there? Did you say that?
Yeah, well, they pick up anything set out there.
And where does that go? To the landfill up in Johnston?
Yeah.
So essentially, it's going to the same places if I put it in that
That's right.
container.
The thing you got going for if you bring it up
Except
here...
you're paying Island Rubbish to do it,
But are we allowed to throw it in that container?
I think there's restrictions on the container, that's why people put it to the side. I don't want to say 100%, but I think it's because he probably piles that thing in at the end of the day because he wants to get all the residential trash bags into it, and it kind of self-pushes the container down.
In a lot of cases, some people would pick it up and take it home. That happens a lot. Reuse a lot of stuff.
That's the ultimate problem with the bag program. One of the problems with the bag program is that you accept all that waste, whether the person pays $100 to go to the transfer station or they pay $24 a month to Island Rubbish. All that stuff comes out of a residential house, considered residential waste. What do you do with it? What do you do with it then? Because it doesn't fit in a bag. Right? Now, Island Rubbish, in theory, if you say Island Rubbish can go townwide and pick up the bags, well then what do they do when there's a chair? Well, they're going to have to do the same thing Middletown does, right? You're going to have to go buy a sticker, pay another fee, because you still have to derive some revenue from that in order to pay somebody to go back and pick it up. Because you can't just let the whole town turn around and say, well, now you can't throw away a chair. You're going to have trash everywhere. You're going to have a bunch of upset people. And I think that, in theory, obviously, there's no secret that I'm not in favor of the bag program, but I think what's transpiring in Middletown is very important because there's something seriously going wrong when they're already this year, a year into the program, doubling the user fee from $75 to $150, and they're doubling the price of the bags. And they're saying that the thing absolutely does not make enough money to pay for the program.
Well, they had a grant. They had a grant, and that's how they hired that guy that came and talked to us. And when the grant ran out, you got to get the money somewhere if you want to continue the program, so they had to raise their fees.
Separate and away from that, if you read the articles in the paper, they say they're in a deficit. Separate and away from the grant paid for the guys, so that's not part of the program. They're in a deficit, meaning they're not making enough money to pay for the fee to dump the trash. So they're doubling the rates.
So
I really would have a hard time going to something like that, and in a year from now, the town of Jamestown is trying to double the fee.
But Jamestown is subsidizing our trash rate right now. So you can't really compare it. Because they're actually trying to balance revenue and expenses. Here, we're just paying for the fees, even for Island Rubbish, right? To be dumping at the municipal rate. When if Island Rubbish were an actual business away from this town, they'd have to pay a higher rate to dump all that stuff up at